Welcome back to the Football Terrace. Good afternoon. It's 5 o'clock. You know what to do. Hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button as well. I am honored to be joined this afternoon live with you by up-and-coming sports agent, football agent, and hopefully soon friend of the Football with Terrace. We're joined by Saad Wadia from Avalon Sports Management. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, man.
No, I'm excited about it. Obviously, lots of talk going on when it comes to football at the moment. Lots of stuff happening in the world of football. Obviously, want to explore today a little bit about your story and sort of background and how you kind of got into the sport and what you're doing and whatnot. But another crazy weekend of games, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just glad we got the 3 points at Liverpool. So massive relief there. I actually fell asleep, by the way, second half of Chelsea United, and I'm not just saying it as in a reference to the game. I genuinely did fall asleep.
Yeah, well, do you know what? It's interesting. I always say when I watch Man United play, I'm a United fan, of course, but it doesn't have to go boring or exciting. The nerves get me through it. But yeah, I'm neutral sometimes. Those kind of matches can just become someone try and win. That's all I could feel the whole way through the game was someone try and win. And the longer it went on, the more everybody sat back and didn't push forward and stuff like that. So are you a Liverpool fan by trade?
Yeah. When I was in the school playground, my mate used to support Newcastle. So every time I would score, I'll put my hand up as if Michael Owen just scored, and I would have that celebration. And his one was Shearer. So ever since then, it's just been Liverpool, and he went down to Newcastle. Luckily, I went down to Liverpool. But
do you know what? Just full disclosure for the audience, Saad and myself were chatting off air before. It turns out we're both from the same town in East London. Never met before, but from the same town in East London. Went to the same senior school in East London, Northampton Boys, which is a small world. And you just triggered something in my mind when you said that. A lot of people won't realise that our age group, there was quite a lot of Newcastle fans in London because they were challenging at the time. They were looking like they were going to go toe-to-toe with Man United for years to come.
Yeah, and I think that Champions League spot was always between Liverpool and Newcastle, and that was always. And I think United were up there doing their stuff. And yeah, you had a few Arsenal fans, don't get me wrong, London club, but it was Liverpool and Newcastle, and I've always supported the underdogs in football, and even in sport in general. I think even at that time, Ferrari, Schumacher was winning everything, so I went with McLaren. It's just a sweeter win, when you're the underdog.
I hear that. My cousin Joe, actually, he went Northampton, and he was a Newcastle fan. So even one of my own cousins, grew up a Newcastle fan in London. There was lots of them, and then not very many anymore. Not very many kids choosing Newcastle at the moment. Is how it is. But yeah, I mean, one of the stories we're following today is very much about Ollie. The fans are angry with his tactics and his style. Do you think Man United fans are justified in being angry with the way Man United are playing at the moment?
Do you know what? I was looking at Man United and.
Oh, we've lost your sound.
Is that better? Yeah. So Leicester right now are third and United are second. And one of the things I was looking at was Leicester are going for the win, right? And that's what Man United fans obviously complaining about is you want to be as aggressive as Leicester. You want to start the games and you want to attack. But do you know what? As much as Man United fans might be angry at this, you're second right now to City, and you can't really. I don't think you can't really complain in terms of where you are. I think where United are right now, I think they're just a little bit ahead of where they should be. And unfortunately, because I'm looking at football in different parts, I'm looking at where Ole is right now in terms of since he's come in and what stage every football club's at. So because I work in football, I'm looking at different stages of every manager, every player, and every club. So when I look at the stages of a club and I'm looking at where they're at, sometimes I'm like, okay, that's justified, or they're actually going in the right direction. So I think the frustration for Man United fans, and this is not just my opinion on a lot of the fans in general, is fans usually just want results like there, right now, there and then. And so if you're second right now, fans are looking at why we're not competing with City. We should be up there. We need to close the gap. I agree. They need to. But I'm looking at from a business point of view, City are miles ahead. The players, squad in depth, the gaffer, Pep, miles. It's very hard to compete with City. And I'm not trying to say you should be happy with the second and Man United right now, but I think if I was a United fan, I'd be happy with second right now than fifth or sixth. And still in unknown territory, but we don't know where the club's going, if it's going in the right direction or not. You've got Rashford who's coming along. You're starting to get a shape of the team. In terms of attacking football, I remember the game against Man United against Everton. You started off and you were just sat back in your own half. And I was like, this was in November, I think. And I was screaming at the TV. I was like, as a Liverpool fan, we just played Everton. And Everton, when the season started, everyone was like, this Everton team is amazing. And don't get me wrong, there's a bit of fan in me still, I still go crazy. So when they beat Liverpool and everyone's praising Everton, I was like, this Everton team is still not up to a certain standard. They were like, oh, this Everton team's going to challenge for the title. When the season started with Rodriguez and I was like, when Man United played Everton the following week, I just felt United gave them too much respect, and United sat back. You sat back so deep that the only time you actually attacked them was after you conceded, where you had to come out and attack now. That worked in your favour, because I felt had United attacked Everton from the get-go, you would have actually went on there to a comfortable win. As soon as you conceded early, it worked in your favour, because then United went out and won 3-1. And I was like, United just could have done that from the start. So I do understand the frustration of United fans when they say we need to be attacking. This is Man United. Man United were known to always attack. They're not there to sell out Mourinho. They're not doing that. But I think right now, in the current climate, with where the Premier League's at, a bit of consistency and being a little bit solid in the most unpredictable season, push you second. Whereas I think Leicester have lost 7. Leicester have lost 7 and drawn 4. So, you could go all out, but then I think United would have lost a few more games.
Yeah, I think for me, I was frustrated yesterday in the way that you're talking about it. I was frustrated with our lack of appetite to win, especially in the last 15 minutes, and that kind of maybe blurred my vision a little bit. It felt like the whole game we didn't try to win, which wasn't strictly true. But it's this case of Fergie would have tried to won those games. There was a few attacks towards the end of the game where we just we didn't play the calculated pass to open the team up. It's like, let's not take that risk in case there's a turnover and we concede on the counter. Let's just be happy to take this draw. But you are right. United are second, and that's miles in front of where they were last year. 12 minutes better off, only losing 4 games, etc. And with all due respect, Man United are not run like a club that wants to win the league anymore, in my opinion. FSG, they do it in a different way to say City's owners, but the way Sheikh Mansour and Man City are run, the way Liverpool have operated under FSG, there is a plan, and Liverpool's plan for me is a plan that takes longer to come to fruition, because they're not going to spend like Man City do, but it's to get their football club to the pinnacle. It's to get their football club to the top of the tree. Where I think with Man United right now, this morning, the Glazers, they're going, where are we in the league? We're second. Are you comfortable in the top 4? Yes, we're happy then. I don't think there's any pressure on Ollie or any manager that comes in at that football club to push on now to win the league. Winning the league would be an added bonus to the Glazers, where I think at FSG and I think at Manchester City and I think definitely at Chelsea, it's the aim is to win. And if you're not winning, it's sort of failure. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think, again, what you just said there was, I know you mentioned Fergie there. And I'm not saying I have a big issue with Man United fans who go back to Fergie, for example. What I'm trying to say is, when United fell down to 7th or 8th, what Man United kept trying to do was they tried to basically get a manager to come in and plug the team straight back from 8th until 1st, straight back from 8th until 2nd. And look, you're speaking to a Liverpool fan. A Liverpool fan will be the best person to tell you how hard it is to go from 8th to 6th, 6th to 3rd, and then 3rd to 2nd and 1st. And there's different stages. And I think with United, the biggest frustration for United fans, why they struggled the most, was because it was very hard for them to adapt to not being a title challenger, not competing with the top team there. And I think for them to get used to getting behind a team who would go from 8th to 6th and celebrate that little jump, where they will still see it as a failure because they haven't hit the top 4 or they haven't. And I get it. In the Fergie era, outside anything out of top 4, you're not doing well. But when you're going through a transition period, right? And I think every club had one. Liverpool had only Gerrard. We struggled to replace Gerrard. Arsenal, Arsene Wenger. Chelsea, John Terry and Lampard. and there was that bit of, is he going to go now? Is he going to go later? How long can we hold on to him? Do you try and hold him for far too long, or you just get rid of him early? But these are so there's some club identities which are there, which are sometimes engraved in the club for 5, 6, 10 years. And moving on from there is really difficult. And I think the biggest challenge United had was when Fergie had gone and you've gone so low, you have to build it up slowly. And I think where you are right now, what Mourinho's done for you, right? I know some fans might disagree. Is he's done the best he could with second, for example, when you got you there, and he's left at a good time for you because you then needed a manager to come in like Oli, who is the total opposite of Mourinho in terms of man management. And the fact that you've got so many young players, you just need young players to go out and express themselves. And I think Man United fans will probably disagree with this, but I think one of the best things that could have happened to Man United, especially for these young players who have been under a lot of pressure coming from the Fergie era, is no fans in the stadium. That allowed them to at least go out and do their stuff. And I think had United fans still been there right now, there might still be a lot of pressure on these boys. And don't get me wrong, fans might turn around and say, well, you're getting paid this much, you can deal with it. But I think it's actually worked in your favour. These young players can go out there and do their stuff. Of course, there's still pressure of social media, etc. But Oli has given them that freedom. Now Oli is trying to be a bit of a mature in terms of he's trying to be more solid, trying to group the players now, have a bit of a system, a bit of a structure. And I think if I was United fans right now, I know you're not competing with City, but it's very difficult. As a Liverpool fan, I know just exactly how difficult that is.
No, and I understand that, and I think a lot of what you said there makes sense in terms of. I've been saying this for a little while now. I want Man United to win league titles. I want our club to have the expectations and the want to get back to where we were. I don't think that's the ambition of the club. Forget individual players. Forget what Rashford and Bruno want for a moment. Forget what the fans want. Forget what Oli in his heart of heart wants. What is the club actually trying to do? Is it trying to get back to the top? Yeah, financial tree. They want to be at the top, but do they actually want to be there? Do they care that much about winning the major prizes? I don't think so. I think there does need to be an expectation change from Man United fans in relation to that. From an agent's point of view, how important do you feel it is for managers in the modern day game to have good modern day man management skills?
Yes, I think if you look at employment contracts, even in like normal walks of life, right? We spoke about creating an environment at Apple where they used to have like pods in there. They used to have freedom to express themselves for the workers. It wasn't a strict 9 to 5. You're able to go out, have lunch breaks, play table tennis, play snooker, and I think that's where the current trend is. So if you look at that in football, I personally feel as if gone are the days where you had Alex Ferguson keeping tabs on everything, and if it's Alex Ferguson way or no way, you get a boot in your head. You get a boot in your head today, it's not going to go.
Yeah, can you imagine the fallout now if at half time Jurgen Klopp kicked a boot in Mo Salah's eye? Like it would just be
No, so I think the player power has been growing in the game. The players' power is too powerful now, and I think that's where you had a bit of a struggle with Mourinho and Pogba, where it was about player power against obviously Mourinho, and Mourinho saying, "Well, United right now are 8th. I'm the big man here, not you. You do as I say." And obviously that's the way Mourinho plays his game. Is his way, and don't get me wrong. If he played his way, could you not have done something? But I'm totally against it, especially after Mourinho was the wrong man for United. Especially for a club like United is always about attack, counter-attack especially. I just thought Chelsea, and I mean, the way United set out under Mourinho, he just never really got the players on board. And he kind of came across as he was a little bit old school to a modern young United. And I think right now with the player power, because he's so powerful, Oli is basically, I'm not disregarding Oli right now. I think the players at Man United have a little bit more edge to them than what Oli is bringing to the club. Oli just needs to let them play. They'll do the rest. And I think that's where Oli has then benefited. So that's why were going back to the last question is, why isn't Man United challenging for the title and stuff? So I was like, look, maybe until the end of this year, if you manage to hold on to second by the end of this year, then you go into another phase where you are now pushing. And then you have a summer. Then the question the fans are asking now are justifiable when the next season starts, and you know they're still playing for second next year. Then you can ask the question. But right now, you still need to secure that second. It's not guaranteed.
No, I hear you on that completely. Can I ask you a technical question? Have you got a device open playing this stream in the background, like a link?
1 second. Let me see if this.
Maybe you open the link.
Is that better? Yeah.
There we go. That's perfect. Yeah. So I'm just getting here a bit of echo in my ears. I hear you on that. And do you know what? I think it's so interesting talking to someone who works within football, because I suppose you do what you look at it as a fan because you are a fan of the sport, but equally you work in it. You're around players, you're around football people sort of all the time. You know, you've got young players that are coming through at Liverpool that you look after. You've got Liverpool legend Ian Rush, who's obviously a client of yours, but also a good friend of yours as well. From your point of view, do you think a football fan's view of football, how is that representative in the game at large? Do the football players think about football in the same way that fans do? It's sort of like it's now or never, it's do or die. Every minute of every game matters, or is it sort of looked at a bit more business and work like?
Yeah. So look, I'll be very honest with you. I'm very old school. And you know, I've been mentored by someone like Ian Rush, so all of the football philosophies I've learned is from the 70s and 80s. You know, the whole boot room, Bob Paisley, you know, Bill Shankly, and everything that I've learned from there, the winning mentality, how football was back in the days, you know, no nonsense, Steven Gerrard, you know, pulling out a winner out of nowhere. That's my upbringing or introduction to football. And even now, these are some of the key fundamental traits that I'm trying to instill in all of our younger players, and not just in football, in any walk of life. And I think we're starting to lose that. And it's not that I'm against it, because I do understand, you know, we're in a modern era now where it is a lot more technical. And the frustration I have now is I would love to, when I watch football, I would love to have that loyalty of, I have my Gerrards, you have your Roy Keanes, your Ryan Giggs, Scholes, you have your Patrick Vieiras. And I remember when I used to watch football, you used to have Arsenal against Man United, for example, and if one player on that team sheet, for example, wasn't there, all of a sudden, when the game starts, you can see the difference. That's how intense the games were. So now it doesn't matter who starts; it's just on the day, whoever is performing well will end up doing well. And that rivalry, that intensity that you would have with Liverpool against Man United, for example, before the game, I would look at the team sheet and I'd be like, oh, I think Liverpool might have an edge here, or United might have an edge here. Nowadays, you just never know. You just never know. And I think that game intensity is gone, because what you now have is you have contracted, you basically have, I just see it as an employment contract for these players now. You come in there as a 2-year professional, 3-year professional. If you do what you do, it's like pay per play, you know. And I think everyone is like an entrepreneur on the football pitch. Everyone has the same opportunity. I'm not saying it's like a pyramid scheme where, you know, you get commission for yourself, but I just kind of get the feeling like, you know, if you score 10 goals, then a better club will want you, and if you don't get 10 run of games, you're going down. And I think.
So what you said? Sorry. So do you feel like that? So do you think there are players in the modern day game now that think, I'm going to go out here and play my game today, as opposed to doing what's like best for the club, because it could get me that move to a bigger team. It could get me that boot deal that I want. Do you think that there's more people that are taking it as more of a profession now, rather than living their dream and playing their hobby?
So it's not even just now. People used to do that before as well. But before, what used to happen was the movement of international trade from it wasn't as frequent. It wasn't as aggressive as it is now. It wasn't as fruitful as it was now. So you would have Gerrard at a club for 10 years. You would have you would have players at clubs for a lot longer. Now players are moving for fun. Players are like, oh, I'm not happy here. Okay, I might as well go somewhere else and give it a go. And the careers are now a lot longer as well. Ronaldo's playing at 36. I know one of the topics we're talking about, Mo Salah, which we'll talk about later. Salah could still go to another club and become another legend for someone else out there. He could have 5 years at a top club, and he will have a legacy at Liverpool and another club if he goes to. So I just feel as if the biggest issue for me was in the price of the modern football was seeing the likes of, as a fan, seeing the likes of Ozil not being on the pitch, not seeing the likes of Pogba not being on the pitch. When you have talents, regardless of what the contract is, regardless of what's happening, as a fan, you're basically missing out on seeing the best of Pogba. You're missing out on seeing the best of Ozil. And so that's where I think the fans end up getting hit, because yes, okay, it's going to affect Ozil and his own personal career, but it's his choice at the end of the day. Same with Pogba. If Pogba's not happy for whatever reason, I thought Pogba held United back a few times. And if I was a manager of United, I would let him go straight away. And that's just me being no nonsense approach. Same as Fergie. If Fergie, put it this way, if Fergie was at Old Trafford right now and you had this stuff happening with Pogba would have been long gone.
So in your view with Paul Pogba, so your professional view of it, everything that's gone on with Mino Raiola talking to the press about, him wanting to leave, essentially, is that something you think is orchestrated by Paul Pogba, or at the very least allowed to happen by Paul?
I think Raiola has too much influence, and don't get me wrong, the issue I've got with Paul Pogba is this: he's a very good technical player, probably one of the best in the world at what he can do. The only thing I think that Paul Pogba is lacking is, Gerrard was able to play with a Liverpool team that wasn't the best around him. If Paul Pogba was to roll up his sleeves, right, and really get stuck in and play his game, but I just don't think he's got that in him. And don't get me wrong, Gerrard is an exception, Terry's an exception, Lampard's these players used to get something from nothing because of sheer drive and determination for that badge, for that hunger, for that club. They'll pull something out the bag. And I think with Pogba, the best scenario for me is, I'm a massive Pogba fan, by the way. It sounds silly. I'm a massive Pogba fan. I'm angry at Pogba because not because I don't think he's good. It's because I feel as if I missed out on seeing Pogba to go on to become the next Zidane or the next superstar player that everyone was kind of looking at him for. And the only way you become one of those players is not just based on technical ability, it's mental toughness. And that comes from having a winning mentality. So when Paul Pogba used to play the games with Lukaku, for example, I remember seeing Paul Pogba underhit the pass to Lukaku. He underhit the pass, Lukaku. But he would have that skip. He would have that jump and a skip on the pitch when he loses the ball or where he mishits the pass. Now, that could be Pogba's fault or whatever. But right at that moment, if Gerrard loses the ball, he's running back. He's not having it. Once he gets the ball back, and then you see Gerrard screaming, shouting, whatever. But in Paul Pogba's moment, he's lost the ball there. And rather than him running back, right? Running back with that attitude to make sure right now on the field that ball is sorted out, he has that little skip. And that is the only skip for me. That little skip is the difference between me having a right go at Pogba and me saying, do you know what? Maybe, Pogba hasn't done anything wrong. Maybe Pogba's doing his best. Maybe, but when I've seen that skip and then I've seen him concede, I think for United, 3 or 4 goals where he was a defensive mid, where he's lost the ball and you've conceded a penalty and you've conceded goals, and that's cost you games.
Do you think that with the likes of Paul Pogba, again, from your side, when you look at him as an example, is that based out of what you said earlier, where players are thinking about, okay, I've done some time here, I really want to move on? Is it because you don't think that many, and Pogba's just an example of dozens of players like this in the model, it's because they're not dedicated to the club they're at, and it's okay, well, there's a big money opportunity for me to go back to Juve or to go to Real Madrid, so I'll just do that next. There's less sort of like, I'm at Man United, I'm at Liverpool, I'm at Arsenal, and this is where I want to be. I want to make them more successful than me. Is it them putting their own careers before the clubs?
So I think it's more of a, like I said, it's right now is a era of highly skilled entrepreneurs, right? So if you have right now, imagine Pogba's an amazing graphic designer, for example. So when it comes to the office, that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to do web development. He doesn't want to be doing the emails. That's all he wants to do, which is fair enough. So you either set up a system where you have a good team around him, right? And you maximize the best out of Pogba. So I think Pogba. So if Man United, I think you get the best out of Pogba when Man United are challenging for the title. When Man United are challenging for the title, and you've then got good players around him who I think now are stepped up. You've got Bruno Fernandes now. You've got Rashford, who's now become I think for me, he's up there with one of the best in the league. So you've now got those players. But a young Lukaku, a young Martial, a young Rashford, before they've gone on to have the seasons they've had now, when they've become mature, it was too much around Pogba. So it's like me saying Gerrard around that Liverpool team. Gerrard had something else in him that helped him get over it. I'm not sure if Paul Pogba has that. And I'm not sure that's Pogba's fault, because Pogba just wants to play football. He just wants to have fun. And that is the modern day footballer, who just wants to go out there, who is fed too much too early. Young players these days are fed too much too early. At 22, I remember I was having a conversation with a United player, a Liverpool player. I don't want to say the other two clubs, it'll be too obvious. But we were looking at doing a documentary on the next, without getting too much, we're looking at doing a documentary on young players. These players are 21, 22. They probably played for the clubs now. Yes, they're superstars at their clubs. And they were like, oh, I want to get my own documentary. And I was like, wait, hang on a sec. Maradona had his documentary just recently, 2 years ago. Cristiano Ronaldo just had his documentary, for example, after 30. You do a documentary after you've had a 10-year career. You've just made it to football. You've had 10 starts for the club, and you want to have your own documentary. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing story. You've made it to Man United or Liverpool or Chelsea or Arsenal. You've made it. That's an amazing story. But you still have to do 5 years of graft before you're regarded as one of the best. And I think that's the conversation I had with Rashford and Harry Kane. People ask me, oh, is Rashford better than Harry Kane? I was like, wait, have you seen what Harry Kane's done for 5 years consistently? Rashford could become better than Harry Kane if Rashford goes and does it. And I think Rashford's on track right now. He's doing everything he can. But you can't compare for me right now Rashford and Harry Kane. Rashford is 1 or 2 years behind Harry Kane. So I'm looking at the timelines of where everyone is.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's a bit like sort of, I remember seeing, I know he was a phenom. I remember seeing Wayne Rooney at 21 release an autobiography. It made me laugh. I'm the same age as Wayne Rooney, and I'm like, 21.
Yeah.
Like for me, when I grew up and I got bought an autobiography for Christmas or for my birthday, it was always somebody that was 40, 50 plus, and they'd lived the lifetime. They'd experienced things. It's like 21. I get that everyone's got a story. I think if you have a good writer, a normal working class person's upbringing could be turned into a really good story, because everybody has trials and tribulations. And of course, footballers are going to have so many. But yeah, to be 21 or be a young footballer and want your own documentary, I hear where you're coming from there. In relation to you, what was it that sort of made you delve into sport in this way and become an agent? What appealed to you about doing it? Was it a part of your plan, or did it kind of just sort of fall in your lap a little bit?
I just loved football. When I was a kid, I grew up in a house. So I was born in India. I came here when I was 7 years old to Leytonstone, and I was that one kid who always had a football in the playground before school, lunchtime, after school. Everyone used to play my football. Basically, we used to kick around. I was the guy who would always. I remember I spent like £5. It was a big deal, and every 2-3 weeks the ball would go over the tracks.
Train track behind the school.
Yeah. And I remember I used to have the mitre balls, and the level would come off right until the end, and then you have to go get a new one. So that was me. I just loved football, and I loved sports, because growing up as the only child, sport allowed me to kind of interact with other people, socialize, and I was very comfortable just kicking the ball on my own before school, after school. And I think I used to practice Gerrard's shots. So Gerrard was my idol at the time. So before school, I would just shoot, and that's how I got a really good right foot. That's what I copied. And then I think what happened was I used to hear stories of how David Beckham made it from Leytonstone. Where I live right now, literally round the corner to here is where David Beckham was born. So growing up in Leytonstone, and when you're a kid and you see the fame, the celebrity world, there isn't a clear path. You can't see clarity in terms of, okay, if I do this, and this is how it happens. You just think it's a different world. You just think, how do you go from being here to here? And when you then see someone like, when you keep hearing stories of David Beckham, my next door neighbor, he would just tell me, oh yeah, I used to play football with his dad. We used to watch the flats. We used to kick around. You know, those stories then you see David Beckham every day on TV having the success he's having, and he's a national icon. You know, we used to have the World Cup. I watched in the school canteen, England against Brazil, 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock, and I remember when we conceded and we got knocked out. But watching David Beckham go on to kind of live that lifestyle in sports and fashion, at the back of my head, I always felt as if there is a string from where I live to the top. And there is a string, because if Beckham's on it, I'm sure there is a way. It just naturally just happened. And then I think I started playing for my local Sunday league team, FC Leytonstone. And then from there, one of my closest friends, one of my best friends from childhood, he was one of the most talented players. And we used to play for Leyton Orient, West Ham. We used to play up and down the country, 5-star tournaments. I wasn't the greatest footballer, to be fair. I had 2 left feet, put it that way. But in a space of 2 years, just playing football every day, from, you know, we would go out, we'll play football at 11 o'clock. We'll just go out there, and we won't come home until like 7, 8, 9, 10, until the sunset. And we would just play against anyone in the park. And I think in our area, it gave us a lot of respect. When a lot of the people were going out there on the streets or doing whatever, football allowed us to hold our own in the area. It gave us that identity on the streets. So whenever you have people, like, you can see people, some people up to this, the other people that, but every time they saw us, they were like, oh, you're the footballers. So that gave us that reputation. And so I just kept on playing football 4 or 5 times a week, and I couldn't see him make it. And that used to hurt me, because I was like, this guy's so talented, there is no pathway. How do you make it? You know, how do you go out there trying to make it as a footballer? Where'd you go from? This guy is so talented. This guy, you know, he was one of those players where no matter what the score is, if you need to go in the last minute, he will somehow get it. It has to be him. No matter how many players in the team, why is it always him? Why is it always Gerrard? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Why is it always? Because it's the winning mentality. So I started looking at what is success. And then me coming from UK as well, I mean, from India, for example, I was looking at opportunities from where I've grown up, rather than accepting what was around me as, okay, this is, and I just kept on seeing opportunities. And so I just kept on, I used to go to PFA awards. I started questioning, how do I get into sports? I started networking. I just started learning. I did FA level 1 course. I had no interest in becoming a coach, but I was interested to know what goes in the head of a coach. What is he thinking?
Yeah, of course.
So I was always one of those people. And then, so I did FA level 1 coach. I did a refereeing course. I used to referee my Sunday league teams here and there. I used to get chased after the games. But,
I bet.
So that was the early days. But I think the real thing really happened for me was, so when I turned 18, I was going to go and study physiotherapy at university, at UEL. So from college, I left school with 2 GCSEs, and then I went to Epping Forest College, and then I got 360 UCAS points, which is like 3 A stars. And then I tried to go to uni for physiotherapy. When I went to uni, they said, "Oh, you're still classified as international student." And I was like, "Wait, hang on a sec. I've been living here since 2000 and since 97. We talked about." So that was a big shock for me. And then I was in the Home Office for I think 2 years, looking at my immigration status, if I was a British citizen or an Indian. And I think at 18 they said, you can go back to your country where you come from, because I'm now an adult. So as soon as you turn adult, I got a letter at my house saying, well, you're now 18, so I'm sure you can go live in, you don't need to be relying on anyone, so you can go back to it. And I think I had a 2-year core battle, and then those 2 years is where I just played football every day. Literally, that was my only escape I had. And in those 2 years, I ended up playing. I went from being okay at football to somehow playing in football stadiums with my Sunday league team. We played at QPR, we played at Stafford Bridge, and that's when my game just shot up, and I saw my development in my own game, and that really hit me, because after 2 years later, the judge apologized to my dad. He said, we've obviously ruined the key stages of your son's career, etc. But it is what it is. But in those 2 years, I went into this zone where my game developed. So I understood the mental side of talent ID, what zone I was in. So that's the zone I'm looking for when I'm looking at young kids now. Because that's where I saw the biggest development. And I was like, for someone like me, who wasn't the greatest, footballers out there, I played with good people. We played in a tournament against J. Manuel Thomas from Forest Gate, Arsenal. We played against a few players here. I know that played in the Championship. Local players who have gone on to do amazing things. So that was my first reality in terms of, oh wow, okay, so I wasn't the greatest. So now you tell me, if I was in an academy since the age of 9, 8, 10, and I had that mindset.
Yeah. So I mean, do you know what I think is really interesting about your story there about that? So I was a bang average football player, but I didn't have the. I focused on fighting, kickboxing, and stuff like that, and I was GB, and I threw my energy into that. I suppose what I'm hearing there is you're kind of looking for in players is, okay, you've got loads of ability, but what's your work rate like? How hard are you? What effort are you putting in? We always hear these stories about young players, 19, they get their first major deal. It might be 10 grand a week, but are you still applying yourself in training? Are you still? And I suppose that's the big thing for me. If I had moved into the world of being an agent, I want to represent the best people, but generally the best people are the ones that are dedicated. So when you think of Haaland right now, that there's absolutely killing it. When you think of Marcus Rashford, there's what they're doing on the pitch, but their work ethic, I think, off the field, in the training ground is key. And the older players you mentioned, the Gerrards, the Beckhams, the Lampards, these individuals were superstars in the Premier League. But you probably find that with some of through the academy stages, through their adolescence, through the youth stages, they're some of the hardest workers out there. They carried on applying themselves to their game. Is that something you look for in players you're trying to sign up to your agency?
100%. I would look for hunger. That's you're going in the most competitive environment, right? You're going in the most competitive environment. So how do you differentiate yourself from the others? And I think whoever wants it the most. And I think it comes down to self-discipline. And I'm not just talking football, anything in life, for example, right? If you apply self-discipline to anything, you will see real growth, whether that's your own daily healthy habits or, mental wellness. There's so many issues right now. And I think self-discipline is the biggest difference from, and then I went into study, not only footballers. So when I was 18, 19, when I had that blip, I was fixated on what is success. I used to go to Mayfair and just hang around in Mayfair. I used to write. I used to sit down in the park in Mayfair and just look around me. And I used to ask myself, what the hell is success? And I started meeting loads of celebrities. I remember meeting P. Andre once on Bond Street. And that was hilarious. I had a good chat with him, and that was fun. And then I started meeting loads of celebrities. And I think the first ever footballer I met, now considering I never used to have a TV at my house, I used to listen to radio, DJ Spoonie and TalkSport, and I remember the first footballer I met I was at Oxford Circus, Nighttown. I was walking there and I see Jose Antonio Reyes. He used to play for Arsenal. We just signed for them, 2009, I think. And baggy jeans, he didn't speak a single word of English. I see him on Oxford Street and he's now Oxford Circus going up the escalators. So I followed him. I went up the escalators and I asked him, look, how do I get into football? How do I get into football? What do I do? And he didn't really speak a lot of English. So he got translation from someone. And he said, no, just hang in there. Basically, it was the standard. Work hard, keep at it, and just network, and he said, yeah, he loves London, but he misses home, etc. Just had a quick chat. We never had a selfie phone back then. So I went and got a yellow sticky note from the till, and then he signed it. And I've still got it right now at home. And when Liverpool won when we won the Champions League, I was in New York at that time. I was at the AJ fight when he lost to Andrew Ruiz. 2 hours before that, Liverpool won the Champions League. And I think it was in the same day I heard that he passed away in a car crash. And I always had this at the back of my head. I would love to go see him now that I'm working in football, and hopefully I'll catch up with him. But then, that was my first ever connection to football, with a real footballer, and it still holds real strong emotions because of just the kind of story and the kind of way, how much he's actually meant to me.
I think especially when you say that, as you're there. Obviously, I know you've got AJ connections. Sort of stuff. Whether you've worked with them or you've been associated with AJ, so you're at AJ's fight and you're there because you've achieved so many things in the sport and the management side, the agent side. Your club that you grew up supporting wins the Champions League, and at the same time, one of your first inspirations to get into it, like passes, like all of that to happen at the same time is. It's kind of mind blowing, Really, like to think that it must have felt like a obviously really bitter and sad moment, but also like how did this even happen?
Yeah, and I think if I'm correct, Chelsea won the Europa League as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'd have to check, but maybe
because I went to the Chelsea supporters bar in New York. My business partner is a huge Chelsea fan, and I remember there were some wild celebrations. But I think there were just so much things happening during those 2-3 days. It just kind of makes you realize, where everything is happening in football. And I think looking back at the journey now, coming from where I've come from, I'm very grateful. And I think because of that, because I'm not saying I'm one of those agents who have just come in from a lot of money and I know what's happening. It's because I've come from the same place as where these young kids are coming from. So I know what it took me to enter these rooms. So when I see a young kid who hasn't got that, it is, first of all, can I show him? Can I instill something in him? Can I show him that, look, you can save yourself 1 or 2 years by just having a simple discipline or just cutting a lot of the stuff out if you have the talent. And again, I'm more interested in these young players becoming better people than footballers, because I'll be very honest with you, there's only a handful of them that will actually want to make it.
Yeah, there's a comment here from one of our viewers that says willpower, drive, strong mentality, dedication, motivation, work ethic, and being ambitious and being self-disciplined is generally the difference between the elite and the ones that are not. Would you agree
100%.
with that when you look at young players? It's
100%. And I think the boot room at Liverpool was so influential. And every day, every time I speak to Ian, he's hammering me about mental strength. That's why I love technical players, don't get me wrong. Like where I come from, there's so many young kids who are on the streets, they call themselves ballers. Yeah, obviously, man's a baller. Obviously, I'm a baller. I get it. You're a baller, but you're not going to get nowhere. You're not going to get nowhere because you don't want to turn up. You don't want to go for trust. You think the people that are scouts are going to come see you because you're a baller. Do you really think that's how it works? They're going to come to see you. Like, come on. So they have to have, you have to, you know, so I get it. There's amazing people that are talented in this world, right? I could be the best at anything, I could be the best at whatever. I was just going to say, if I was in my bedroom right now and I was the best at something, no one's going to see it. But in the age of social media with YouTube, you see a lot of these kids.
But you still got to put the work ethic.
You still have to turn up.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So that's why now me going back to Pogba, I feel like Graham Souness here right now, and I think Graham Souness gets a lot of stick for it when we're United fans. Let me clarify this, right? Let me clarify this. The reason why Graham Souness gets a lot of stick is because he's misunderstood. If you watch Graham Souness, I'm sure there's a lot of fans who are a lot older than me. They will remember Graham Souness, the type of player he was and what he used to do, and especially in Italy, the kind of league it was, right? So Graham Souness has that mentality, and the problem is just his comments are in a different time in terms of where he's coming from and the modern day football. And what he's trying to say, and this is where I agree with him, the reason why he's like one of your granddads who's really strict on his family, because he knows they can be 10 times better. He's really strict on Pogba, and I genuinely believe this. He's really strict on Pogba because he genuinely believes Pogba can go on to become that superstar that everyone says he is, that he can be. So right now, Pogba, for me, I still think he still has that in him to go on to become or go to the next level. But it'll be a real shame for me if Pogba is where he is right now. He thinks in his head he's doing everything he could, right? But this is the best of Pogba we see. This is the best of Gareth Bale that we saw when he went to Real Madrid. I feel as if we've missed out on seeing a little bit more of Gareth Bale because of the politics that happened at Madrid. It's not his fault, but because when you're earning £400,000 a week, it takes that hunger away. It takes that. It does, whether you like it or not. I mean, I remember Alex Sanchez at Arsenal, for example, right? When he went to Man City, someone asked him, someone asked him about a player. I can't remember which player. I think they asked him about Gundogan. And he said, who's that? He didn't know. He didn't know about Gundogan. This is a Premier League player. Who's playing against him? He's in the same. So people do get caught up in their own little world. And especially a lot of these players, getting too much success too early takes that fire away from you. zaps it away.
It certainly can. I mean, I know you're a boxing fan. I remember listening to Joe Kawasaki talk, and he basically said that he was world champion and he lost his house. He couldn't afford these mortgage payments. And he said, now there are people that are on their third pro fight. And because they came for the Olympics, they're already millionaires. And he goes, he was like, they're not hungry for it. Like, I was a world champion and I had more hunger and fight at that point than ever before, because I hadn't made the money yet. I hadn't secured my family's legacy and future forever. And I think that's the thing. And once you do make it and the money's there, like, I work hard, I get out of bed every day. If I won the Euro Millions on Friday and I had £80 million in the bank, I'm not putting in the graft that I do, because what's the, like, not straight away. I might, you know, you're definitely taking time out, going to buy some cars, go on holiday when the world opens up again. You might in a year or two settle and go, right, now what am I going to do with my time? But you're not going to, you know what I mean? You're not going to get out of bed and keep, you know, keep building the brick walls, keep cooking, you know, if you're, you know, working a kitchen, or in my case, like finance. I'm not going to slug my guts out trying to sell banking products to people. I'm going to chill. So the same has to be said. If you're a footballer and suddenly you got 300, 400 grand a week coming in, I think only the very special players, only the very special ones can earn that, get that notoriety and keep pushing forward. And it's why Messi and Ronaldo are on a different level. Thierry Henry's as an example, Zinedine Zidane's, who made money, they became superstars, but kept on working hard. David Beckham's another who probably wasn't technically as good as any of those guys, I don't think, but he kept on working hard, and he was my favorite player growing up, Man United fan from Leighton. It was always, but he kept on working hard, and until the day that he retired. And I think it's key on Liverpool. Another big story that was circulating today is Real Madrid being interested in Mo Salah. The report says that they may not have enough money. And I know you have Liverpool connections. Is that a player you think Liverpool would look to cash in on to rebuild their front three, or do you think it's almost impossible for anyone to sign Mo Salah?
First of all, this is really close to home, because I was in Dubai, I think in January, February, and I think Ian's there right now. And I think he met with Rami, Salah's agent. So, I don't want to get too much into it, but in a nutshell, I just think with COVID right now, the clubs have lost around, the top 20 clubs have lost around 2 billion. So, totally, that's wiped away. That's wiped away from the market. So, yes, clubs can still spend 50 million, 40 million, 80 million, 100. Liverpool are going to sell Salah for 100. You're going to be looking at something crazy. You're going to be looking at something in the region of 150 plus. You're not looking at 100. You're not looking at 80. You're not looking at 70. And I think the only two deals I can see there is you got Salah and you got Mbappe. I know Bayern Munich are interested in him. I know PSG might be. So I think looking at the modern football landscape right now, if you're looking at, for example, if you're looking at from just strictly business point of view, this deal could be something bigger than just football oriented, where you could be looking at the World Cup, which is happening around, and you can get politics involved, and that might be able to fund it from one way or the other, with the same way the same way Neymar went to PSG.
Yeah, that was kind of the country sponsored him to be an ambassador to buy a contract. Yeah. Very clever bit of business.
Yeah, and Mo Salah is the biggest name in Middle East when it comes to football. I mean, just 2 days ago, he was on the face of the Burj Khalifa, the big advert with with Adidas. I think that might be more realistic. But from a Liverpool fan, he's staying. I think he's going to stay. He's going to stay. I can't see him going. So, first of all, even if someone did want him, and even, I can't see him going. First of all, it would have to be like a crazy bid for Liverpool. And, Liverpool will consider it, I think with Fenway Sports right now, I think Liverpool consider it, but it would have to be something too good to be true. Then it works for him, it works for the club, and it works for everyone. Yeah. I'm only doing it if I'm getting Mbappe at Liverpool.
So is that something, again, we know that a lot of money's been wiped out.
Yeah.
Is that something you think Liverpool and Fenway Sports Group could they pull that off?
We could only pull it off. So here's the thing with Fenway. Fenway are not doing, if they sell £150 million from Salah, or 100 200 million, 180 for Salah, Fenway are not then taking out 100 and putting that to the side. If you look at the Fenway model, is if we make 150, they will put 150 back, right?
Okay.
That's how they operate. So if you look at when Fenway first came, the Moneyball, Boston Red Sox hadn't won the league for like 86 years. The Curse of the Bambino, it was called, you know. And if you look at, I went to Fenway Sports about 4, 5, 6 years ago. The Fenway Park and Anfield is so identical. It's crazy. It's got like really old school changing rooms, just like Liverpool, you know. And there's a lot of similarities. And then that model that Fenway have obviously implemented, and they've gone on to now have the success we've had with the Moneyball. And we used to basically, I always say this, we used to basically go to to the shops, and we couldn't afford to buy fresh apples and bananas. We would have to get them a day or two before they would expire, from, you know, right at the end. So the day before they expire for like 25p, you can't afford to go and get £2.25. I mean, how much ever they are, you know. So, but what we had to do was we had to take high risk, you know. So we got Balotelli, we got Suarez, we got Coutinho. Coutinho was a 20-year-old at Inter Milan, not consistent, but lots of potential. We don't know if he's going to work or not. These are the players we took, and then obviously with the likes of Trent coming through our own academy, Robertson, that allowed us, all happening at the same time, all going well for us, that allowed us to then have a system in place, which we got 145 mil. We nearly won the league, just fell short with Rodgers. We never had a defense at that time, which is strong enough. And then that allowed us to go and get a manager who also just happens to hit it straight away. Then it allowed us to compete at the highest level by not going above them, by just being in the same room as them. That allowed us to just be in the same room by having this philosophy. And then we had to go aggressive with 2 buys, which I think turned it around, where we actually did not a reactive move, but actually a proactive move, which was when you got Van Dijk and Alisson. And again, both of them coming in and having an impact from the get-go. It wasn't as if it took Alisson 6 months, it took Van Dijk 2 months.
They hit the ground running and were just sensational.
So what I'm trying to say is you've got a combination of 10 to 5 or 6, 7 things. The manager coming in, the players coming in, every single one of them. Also receiving a bid for Coutinho off that one, someone actually coming in, buying it for that much and actually selling it, and then going to get our players. 5 or 6, 7 things all going for us at the same time allowed us to then go past Man City. That's what it takes if you're at this level. And I think financially we can't compete with them. So with now this whole FSG, with where we are right now with the current transfers, to be fair, last summer, I know fans are going to complain we didn't go out and get, the aggressive buy. We didn't go out and get a £100 million player, because if you're at the top, you need to keep attacking to keep yourself there. It happens in politics, it happens in whatever. You can't just, if you're at the top, you have to attack sometimes. Yeah. That's the only way to sustain yourself. So I think for Liverpool, what happened was we did attack. And if you think about it, we went and got a player from Bayern Munich who had just won the Champions League. We're getting a player, a superstar who's coming right. So, yes, you may argue, we've got a superstar. And we also got another player who has the potential to develop into a world-class player. So we only got Diego Jota, and he came in and boom, straight away, 10 games, and he looks like one of our best players. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I don't want to make excuses, but, sometimes you have to state the obvious, and Liverpool have had the most injuries. And in the short space of time, if you lose the world's best centre-back, you're going to have consequences. And regardless of what you say, I still think Liverpool have gone through their worst period, right? 4 games back-to-back losses when we had. And we're, I think, 2 points behind top 4 points. So I don't think it's the worst thing that could have. It's the worst that could have happened for Liverpool, but I don't think it's as bad as, yes, the title hopes are gone. We're not winning the league, but this team hasn't folded. I don't think this team is gone. I don't
you think Liverpool will? I think most people do, really and truly. You can put all banter aside.
Yeah,
some people think Klopp's burnt them out.
No.
I still think you're going to cut. I still think you're going to bounce back next year. There's no doubt about it. But in relation to the point about Mbappe, you really only see that deal happening if, for instance, say it's Real Madrid or Barcelona, but Barcelona get like a sponsorship deal, and I say sponsorship loosely, from a Middle Eastern country that wants Mo Salah to be their official tourist ambassador, and they pay Salah like £180 million to do it, and that money ends up in Liverpool's back pocket because he buys his contract out. You think then only then would FSG go, right, now let's go after an Mbappe or someone of that level. It's only going to be, it's not going to be based on the new Nike income or general income. They wouldn't be able to afford Mbappe that way around.
No, I'll tell you why. First of all, Barca are out of it for me. Barca have got some serious problems right now.
Yes.
Probably seen the news this way.
Yeah.
They're out of it. They've got, so every team that has a transition we talked about earlier, Barca are going through that now with Messi. How do you replace Messi, or how do you build a team, or how do you move on, or you have a new identity? That's what Barca got right now. With Mo Salah, right? The issue is this. I think Liverpool will bounce back, and I think Liverpool will start. I mean, we've got one of the most valuable squads in the league right now, right? And I think what Salah is doing for Liverpool right now, because he's doing it right now for fans, we always see the value after it's happened. We always see football players 3, 4, 5, 6 years later. Then when you look back at it, the whole nostalgia stuff, you don't really understand what he's doing. And I think Mo Salah right now is in the same part as Lewandowski's and the top 6 in the world. And it's just because he's got this one awful touch that you just can't. He always has that one touch. Sometimes you're like, oh, that can't be a world-class player. It's because that lets him down. But apart from that, because I think he's more of a reactive player than a proactive player. Reactive player is someone where he just gets into a situation. He doesn't know what he's going to do, whatever he's going to do, but he just somehow comes up with magic. And then he looks back on it and like, wow, I just did that. A proactive player is someone like Mbappe, who he knows exactly what he's going to do, regardless of if it's burned, he's got 6 men behind the ball, he will still find a way. He will just create. Messi will create something from out of nothing. And don't get me wrong, Mo Salah has that in him as well, because obviously there's some level to it. But at the highest level where he's had the most impact is in those key decision-making where he hasn't had to think. He hasn't had to think too much. And he's just done it just out of instinct. And it's the same with Mane. When you get Mo Salah and you get Mane to think, you have issues. You have issues. When they're thinking...
well, that's one of, as a United fan, we see that in Marcus Rashford. When it's instinctual, when it's react now, it's there. When it's a case of, right, I've got, you've got to... And that's the thing with a lot of players. It's just there's you can call it decision-making. I look at it more, it's not even so much the decision-making, it's overthinking in certain situations, and then they overplay it and they try too much, where he's an actual... Mo Salah quickly put through one-on-one, he's scoring. Mo Salah with like a minute to make a decision, sometimes he might miss. Mane's even worse, like in that situation. If Mane's got too much time, it invariably, it feels like it goes wrong. So I hear you on that. But so for overarching, you think Liverpool fans should rest assured that you're gonna keep Mo Salah, but they should probably put their dreams aside of signing Kylian Mbappe.
Yeah, so now you need to decide, right? And this is the argument I always have with fans. Many at a second, but you're complaining that they're not playing attacking football. Okay, fine. So you want to jeopardize your team from losing a few more games, and you may not be second. So with fans, what I'm trying to say is fans will always want something, right? There's always like, it's just like they just think FSG will have this imaginary bank account where they'll just, pull out £150 million from somewhere. Unfortunately, I wish it was the case. And to be fair, it is the case for a few owners. Unfortunately, it's just not the model for Liverpool. And you also have to understand from 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, they're not the current owners of when Liverpool won the league and they've come in and then they've invested. So you also have to look at the owners when they came in. Liverpool were 6th, 7th, 8th, or even lower. I don't want to go down too low as a Liverpool fan.
No, I hear you. I do hear you with that, bro. Listen, it's been absolutely fascinating listening to your story, how you rose up and everything else, and what you did and stuff like that. I think it's interesting to hear. Again, we as football fans will always look at it from one perspective and maybe not from another. We had a few super chats that came in. The first one says, are Liverpool going to win the league next season, even if City sign Haaland and Messi? Can you see City getting Haaland and Messi?
I can see Chelsea getting Haaland. I was speaking to someone from Chelsea, and Roman wants him like really bad. He doesn't care how much he wants him. He doesn't, I was speaking to Scout, and he's telling me he really wants Haaland. So Roman's going to go after him.
Wow. So like that's a legitimate story. Like this, not paper talk. That's Roman's number one guy.
Yeah. I mean, this is he's gonna go after him, and he really likes him.
That's an interesting one. Viewers, if you've got any questions right now, make sure you get them in. Tahir says, if you were born in the 80s or 90s, life was about being outside playing footy, etc. But if you're born in the 2000s, it's dominated by technology, computer games, FIFA, etc. Listen, we played computer games when I was a kid, but we used to go and where I used to play football as a kid growing up. Do you know, like, remember, Coronation Gardens right by Leighton Orient's ground? Do you remember when it was gravel? Do you remember when it was gravel? Where I did it all up? That's what we played on that from like 8 in the morning until I don't even know what time at night. Sometimes it would be crazy. It'd be into the light. And where we lived in the tower blocks in Oliver Close. Just my dad would shout from the balcony like, "Come home!" when it was getting too dark. That was literally it. Yeah. That was a mad. I remember once, right? We used to play. Sometimes it would be like 20 versus 20, and it would just be you would be playing with our group of friends, and then another group of lads would turn up and like fancy a game. And be like, yeah, great. Otherwise you played headers and volleys or you played knockouts, and then another group turns up. I missed them days where it was just football all day. You weren't worried about what's going on TV. Social media didn't matter. It's as simple as that. So Haaland to Chelsea, yeah. What about Jadon Sancho? Can you see him coming back to the Premier League? Coming to the Premier League. I know he's not played here yet, but is it a Man United front runners, or do you think someone else might slip in?
No, so I spoke to. So I'm really close to Bayern Munich. And for example, we had a few players from the UK that were heavily linked to German clubs. And I think Sancho kind of set the trend. And I think for Sancho to come back now, it's a success story. And I think if you look at what Callum Hudson-Odoi has been able to do, he was going to jump the ship to Germany. Luckily for him, it actually didn't go through. He ended up getting a bumper contract before he's even had 10 games in the Premier League, by the way. He's getting paid the same amount as some Liverpool players are being paid after winning the Premiership and the Champions League. Again, goes back to the you got Liverpool players, Gini Wijnaldum, there's a reason why he's holding off, because he's like, look what I've done, look what I've achieved. There's clubs out there who are willing to pay me X amount. And he's right, because he's won the Premiership, he's won the Champions League. I think it's very important to Liverpool. So in terms of Sancho, I think Sancho would eventually come, but he's having fun right now. I wouldn't want to change it. United, I hate to say this. I thought Sancho to United last year wasn't a good move for him, and I thought it wasn't what United needed. United needed to focus on getting their stuff together and being where they are now. That is actually the best thing that's happened to United, I think. And that's where the focus should have been. You getting a Sancho last year wouldn't have helped. If anything, again, United would have basically just been, with a first with Fergie, we've gone to 8th, we're just going to go 150 mil, 110 mil, and we're going to fix the problem. And again, it would have been a distraction. Had Sancho come in and had the impact, I'm not 100% sure yet. I think him maturing as a player now, he's going to come back to the Premier League as more of a solid all-rounded player, not just with a potential. And I think I would rather see him hold on to Germany for a bit. Maybe next year. I think it's a good move.
I understand where you're coming from. Do you think Man United? Who are Man United looking at in this summer? Are there anyone you've spoken to? Any kind of stories around United where you just there's some big noise, like Haaland to Chelsea as an example? Are there any big noises around Man United making any splashes this summer?
The only issue I've got is there's a few conversations I can't really say anything.
No, of course, yeah. I know that we tell you can't. I'm going to ask,
and like for me, like if I was involved in a few transfers myself, just out of respect for some of the other agents, or to clubs, I don't want to say anything, but I do think United will be in a good space. I think again, United have the same problem at Liverpool, but the only advantage United have compared to other clubs is, commercially they're miles ahead. They are still somehow able to, as much as you may hate your owners, etc., you are able to, when you went down to, after you've had a dip from Alex Ferguson, you were able to go and get a £90 million player. When Arsenal left the Champions League, I said it's going to be a long time before they ever get back, and Arsenal haven't been able to get a £90 million player. You know, Arsenal are struggling to retain the best players they've had, and they've had to give out silly contracts. For United, I think you'll be in a very good space. But I think the biggest thing for you, and this is not me now, I've been praising Oli for what he's done. I think the biggest transfer for you would be a world-class manager to take you from Oli to where he's got you, to then Oli to then an international superstar of a manager who then takes you to Premier League title contenders. That's what you're going to need. You're going to need someone, unless Oli goes in and does a Klopp.
Do you know what?
Which is football. Yeah, you can never write someone off.
I don't disagree. Look, I like Oli, a lot of time, respect for him. My view is this: I don't think the club has the desire to win the league. Right? It's a bonus. Top four's there, so get a better manager then. At least then, if you're coming second and the football's better, it's more enjoyable. Does that make sense? And you never quite know if Liverpool if Man United had a better manager this season. It is a fair point when people say, if we had a better manager with this squad and maybe City didn't go on this madness of a run, there's half a chance you might be able to sneak a Premier League title in there. But with Oli, there just isn't.
I disagree.
You do?
Yeah, because I would say you had Mourinho. You did have a time where you had a manager who was a superstar, for example, and it didn't happen. So what I'm trying to say is there's a stage you have to go through. And I think right now, the stage you're in right now, for example, you went with Mourinho, for example. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're basically you're banking on that 10%. The 10% is if we go get a world-class superstar manager, we could win it. There's 10% chance. But 90%, I'm saying it's not going to happen because you're looking for something to really kick off. You're looking for something special to happen. Because if you're 6th, 7th, 8th and you're out of Champions League, for you to just go out and just all of a sudden become a Premier League winner, you're looking for something extraordinary. You're looking for something special to happen. And I think, yes, by having a top-class manager enhances that chance, but it's not guaranteed. Not in the current climate. Not when Man City can just go and get 50, 60 mil for a player. Not when they can just go and get right back for fun. Not when you've got Liverpool building for 3 or 4 years of growth. Not when you've got City that have been building.
Okay, I understand what you mean. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, for me, we do need a better manager. I've come to terms with that.
This summer, if Man United go and get a new manager, and that's what I'm trying to say. When you're talking about transfers coming into Man United,
do you think a new manager is more important than any player?
Yeah, because he's the one who's going to get you those players. No offense. No, I understand. Who do you think Oli is going to attract right now from the big names? Who do you think Oli is going to go and get?
No, I think Man United are the attraction. I don't think Oli. If you have a new exciting manager, let's say Nagelsmann was suddenly announced their manager, there are some players saying, "Oh, I wouldn't mind giving that a go." So no, I agree with that. And listen, I love Oli, and I love him dearly as a legend of my club. But I'm also not. I'm not precious. I'm not precious. If it improves my team, I'm not gonna cry about it. We had a question here from JP, sorry, that says, do you see Liverpool looking to sign an American, for example, a Pulisic, to expand their brand in North America?
Liverpool do have a focus on North America, by the way, and so do a lot of other clubs as well. Actually, to be fair, we went to China, we went to Middle East, and we realized those markets are all over the place, and they've gone for a slow approach in. We've been going for a lot of preseason in US. I remember when you had Liverpool Man United there, which is incredible. I remember Chelsea played Red Bull. Pulisic, the only issue with Pulisic is Liverpool right now are only going to be signing players who are going to be direct world beaters. And I think Pulisic is a little bit too good in terms of what Liverpool would sign. He's in the middle. So he's a little bit ahead of Diego Jota, I think, but he's not your Mbappe. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So if you look at the growth of the player, Chelsea are not going to sell him for a cost price. So it wouldn't make sense for Liverpool to pay over the tops to go and get him, then rather than rather than get a top player.
They'd rather get the next young American,
and then build him up,
and then build from there. Micah here said, any chance of Mbappe to Liverpool? We've already kind of gone through that one. You can watch that back, Micah, rather than Carabao Grand. This is an interesting one. Why would Haaland choose Chelsea over City?
Why would he choose Chelsea over City? If you look at Chelsea's history in terms of the kind of success they've had, they've always had that one big striker, and if the game is sold on his style, and he's a big guy, I'm not saying he's the next Drogba, but he's got everything there that he fits into the way Chelsea play right now, and I think he will suit them. The other question you have with City is, does he want to be going to a club where, if you look at the strikers that Chelsea have had, Man City have had, they haven't had an out-and-out striker for a long time. It's always been the wingers. It's always been the best players, the best goal scorers for them has been Sterling's, Mahrez, Silva's, you name it. So I'm just going for more style of football. But at the end of the day, I see Haaland more inclined towards Chelsea than Man City, and I think Roman just wants him.
I think as well with that, that's a big point you pull on. I think sometimes something I learned, if we're talking to football players, sometimes it's how much a club wants you. So when Lukaku was banged on to go to Chelsea, and then Chelsea kind of stopped talking to him, they said, that's cool, he's going to sign for us, we'll wait for him to get back from his holiday. But Man United spent the whole summer texting, calling, ringing him, we want you, like, desperately, and that seemed to change Lukaku's mind. It was like, well, they seem to want me a lot more. And we're all like that as people. And I'm sure you do that with when you're out there. I remember working in the private bank. The agent of Danny Rose was all over. I think Danny Rose and Dele Alli were his clients, and we had tickets for the NBA when it was over. And he was desperate for him. He said, "Why? Because I just got to keep my clients sweet because they could leave at any minute. Because a lot of the times there's not permanent contracts." And he's like, "I need to keep sweet." So it's a case of the agents play a part in this. The agents then want, they will push. And I think Roman really wants him. And generally when Roman wants something, he gets it and they do it right. All the Ronnies here, one of our members says, Terry, can you ask about swap deals? Will we see more of this? The swap deals happen too often where Man United want player A and they do a swap for another. My understanding is they're not very common to do like legitimate swap for swap deals.
In today's era now, right, when you used to have swap deals before, you would have an ally who's at another club, or you would have a friend, you would have another friend. So if I'm a Chelsea manager and I've got a friend in Germany, and I think it will suit. But the game right now is so fast-paced. Since the season started until it finishes now, the clubs are in two different scenarios where one club could end up becoming a competitor for the other one. Whereas football seasons before, don't get me wrong, football is already a very fast-paced industry. In the football industry, 3 months is like a year in a normal industry. Or you have a run of 10 games, and you go from challenging for the Champions League to potentially title winners or title challengers. So the game is so fast now. If I'm going to be swapping someone, I want to make sure I'm not giving someone an advantage over or unless the swap is not accurate in terms of I'm benefiting somewhere. I'm getting a Salah and I'm giving him, I'm
swaps are just hard. Then you've also got to convince both players to want to leave and do personal terms. When it's cash, you've only got, it's like one. It's almost like when you're doing a swap. There's a bit like a chain. When you're buying a house, you've got to rely on everything falling into place. Where it's cash, you only need one player to agree terms. There's a comment.
I was just going to say, and the contracts are so detailed now. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So it's not as straightforward as it was. Okay, I'm playing FIFA. I'll just swap the two players. Happy days. Yeah, I wish it was that easy.
I know. I remember. I was given a contract of one of the. I don't know why they sent it to us. Because when we used to open the bank accounts, we used to because we knew who the clubs were. It was just confirmed to us what they're earning. Because obviously we had to mark it down on the report, so we knew how much money was going to come into the bank accounts. And you had to do this for anyone joining the bank. In the private bank, there was more due diligence. For the footballers, it was always a little bit embarrassing because we kind of knew what they were earning. But we used to have to ask them questions like, so for what? I remember signing up Slutsky when he became the whole manager. And I said, you know, when it was like we had to ask him these stupid questions. So it was like when you were at Club A and you moved to Club B, why? And he looked at me like I was weird. The reason is because they've offered me more money, or it was a more prestigious club. But you had to ask them in the same reasons you would ask a banker why he left Lloyd's and why he joined Barclays. So you got these stupid answers. I remember one of the questions to one of the footballers is, why did you leave? Like, I think he was at Sporting Lisbon, and why did you sign for Wolves? And I asked him, and he just looked at me and said, because they're paying me 3 times the amount of money. I said, I know, I need to ask. It's awful. But as you say, I saw the contract, and yes, it was the base salary was there, but all the clauses were in there. It was like goal bonuses. If he was subbed, he'd get an appearance bonus, but only if he played for more than 60 minutes in games. And I remember watching this guy, his first 3 appearances for that said club, they pulled him off after 58 minutes. And I'm like, wow, they're clearly trying to not give him his bonuses. Yeah, some of the clauses and then there was all these issues because he had his own watch sponsor and the club had its own sponsorship. So it was almost making sure that the two companies, the two watch brands, were happy with the intertwining deals. Some of these contracts can take weeks, absolutely weeks to resolve and get.
We've got, for example, I know a few international cricket players in the Indian team, and we're trying to do some stuff with Chelsea and some of the clubs where you're just playing a FIFA game against like a superstar from here. He's playing against a superstar in a different league, and you're trying to raise the awareness of Chelsea in a different market. And, you know, it's just so difficult if they both are not Nike-sponsored athletes. So if one is sponsored by Adidas and one is Nike, you're like, oh, do you know what? It would just be better if I just go and get a Nike-sponsored athlete just because I don't want to annoy. So you're playing on the screen and you may have like Mason Mount in Nike or Adidas, and you could have someone else on like Umbro, and it just doesn't, just for the sake of it, just to keep the relationships happy. It's so, you know, it's just fun. It's just banter, just playing FIFA online for fans. It's not even, there's no commercial deal behind it. It's just, you know, creating awareness, but it can become so tricky. One thing that I would say to our Chelsea fan, by the way, is you might see more of the Minamino deals where Minamino went to Liverpool. I mean, Southampton. So so there is an element of, yes, the ones who do have good relationship with some of the clubs, for example, you gave me Van Dijk. Don't worry, I'll try and keep you happy. I'll try and we still got a good relationship. I'll try and still look after you. There is a bit of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, but then I suppose, like you said earlier, if Southampton suddenly had a resurgence and if Southampton were still at the top of the league and Liverpool, they were challenging in this season, they probably wouldn't have given them Minamino. So as you say, it depends on the circumstance you're in. And do you find that we had someone come on here the other day and tell us that transfers can't be done in February and March. Are transfer conversations already begun between clubs at this stage, or do the clubs wait until the summer to start the conversations?
So there is a lot of, how do you say it? You've got the standard rules, the standard process of when the clubs are allowed to engage with someone or they're not, for example, right? And then you've got the official agents who are acting. You've got the official agents who are acting as the players' representative, etc. But I'm going to be straight up and say this is probably the murkiest world you could ever think of, where I could be looking after my player, and I've heard horror stories of some clubs, they've reached out to the dad directly. And I'm talking about horror stories from football back in the days. That used to happen. And it's not even about the player anymore. The player's been offered money that he's never seen before. And then the other agent has said, well, if you sign with my agent, I'll get you the deal. The actual agent of the player could end up losing something with his own player on that big payday. Because think about it, forget football world right now. Imagine in a normal world, you're working for Barclays right now, and HSBC come out of nowhere. Imagine by law they have to go to your employer to offer them 30 million for you to move to HSBC. But rather than going to your agent or to your employer, they see you at Starbucks around the corner. I need to have a word. And
yeah, of course. Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely in City. I mean, I remember getting told a horror story where a friend of mine that's one of my clients that I worked with, he was like, he lost a couple of clients because the manager of a football club wanted to sign these two players. The manager of the football club, his brother was an agent. He went to the players and said, look, we'll sign you for this club. It's bigger and better than where you are. We'll pay you both an extra £10,000 a week extra. They're like, oh, yeah, great. Let's speak to my agent. No. I want you to sign with my brother's agency, and then we'll do the deals as an example. You even had it recently. I mean, Ravel Morrison revealed the same thing with Big Sam. Big Sam was like, we're going to give you a new deal, but you basically got to switch agents and come be with my agent and we'll get you the deal done. He said no, so we didn't get a new deal. And then they got rid of him weeks later. Like, it's crazy the way it operates. And I think, again, good agents in the game. One thing I love about agents, I said this many, many times here on the terrace, that I like the idea that quite a lot of football's money, this billion-pound organization, goes into the pockets of the most important element of the sport, which is the players. In most industries, most people's cost to income ratio is so bad. How much you generate for your business based on what you get paid is a pittance. With footballers, they get paid such a great percentage and proportion, both from the football clubs, from sponsorships, etc., which I think is great. And agents do that good job. But then there are some agents out there, in my opinion, that just it's all about making money. And when they build a reputation, and when they, as you say, if you've got some real big, if you've got people in influential positions, if you're an agent, you've got 3 or 4 powerful Premier League managers, and then you got, right, what I want you to do, X, Y, and Z, is when you're doing renewals of contracts, get your players to sign with me to get better pay. It's just, it's horrible, really. It's terrible.
It's really hard to say this because, like, imagine you have an agent who has the right intentions, he's doing it the right way for the football, for the love of the game, for the players, for the fans. He will get wiped aside by these clubs because these clubs are as brutal as these agents. These clubs will wipe you out. And I'm not just saying it because I'm trying to ruin my relationship with any clubs I'm working with. I'm just trying to give an indication of, imagine an environment where, you're talking to clubs, players, and you're talking about deals which are 1.2 million, 3 million, 4 billion. It's not a standard, hi, hello, I would like to purchase something for 1.2 million. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Please come through the door. No, it's not. So there's a lot of the clubs have been there for a long, long time. And the one thing which I do like about football is all about your reputation. So if you're an agent who's been doing things the right way, you would build up a good reputation with the clubs, and vice versa. And if you're an agent who's just bullyish and who just happens to have 5 of the world's best players, anyone will pay you whatever the price you put on it in order to get them. At the end of the day, he will be that agent. He probably doesn't give a crap about football. Let's just say, for argument's sake, he doesn't care because he probably doesn't watch the games, but he knows what he's got. And if you got the world's 5 best players in there, whatever price you put on it, that's what they're worth. And unfortunately, these are the agents where you have that really bad reputation or the name. Where
I know who you're talking about. We'd have to say
exactly.
I know who you mean.
That really hurts me. So that really hurts me because as much as I'm open for agents doing well, and by the way, agents do get criticized because people don't understand. So the biggest issue that you have in football is all of the other stuff. If something's happened and someone's given an answer for what's happened and you're able to understand and process it, you get, okay, that's happened, you can justify it. But if something has happened and someone doesn't tell you what's happened and you don't know about it and it's behind the wall, there's a question mark. And that question mark could be whatever you think it is. And unfortunately for a lot of the agents, that question mark is always negative because of some of the horror stories. I'll tell you right now, the biggest issue I have right now is with a few of the journalists I'm seeing. And this is my personal, I'm not saying I've got a fight against it, but I'm just against fake news. And I'm just against so many people now who are creating content from a position of no real knowledge. That really hurts me. That really hurts me because there's so many young kids. I've got a little brother, he's 11 years old. And I worry sometimes because he's consuming content right now. And I'm just like, I'm worried he's not consuming the right content. I'm worried because everyone is creating content now. You need to have experts in their fields. So, for example, this is a football channel. You're talking about football. And we start talking about politics now. And we start giving advice on 20 different topics. We speak football because we consume football every day. So a lot of even some of the football journalists out there, so some of the top ones. I'll give an example. This happened to me recently. Someone asked me for a journalist reached out to me for a story. I told the journalist in December, once I have the press release for some of the stuff that we're doing, I will come and give you the first press release and you can put it out. Now, December, I was in Dubai because we had the Globe Football Awards where Ronaldo won and Lewandowski, etc. So I was out there working until December, January, February. We've just done a few deals. We bought a few grassroots clubs, etc. And we still haven't completed those deals. We're still renovating. We're still, looking at what's happening. And then I think January, I get bombarded messages from a journalist. Oh, can you let me know when your client's free to speak? I was like, look, we're still in the middle of, it hasn't even finished yet. It hasn't even happened yet. Let me actually do my work first. Once it's completed, then I can, then give you, whatever you want. I'm more than happy for you to share it. I'll give you an hour or two with my client. You can, February, still, we haven't gone ahead. Because of COVID, everything is getting pushed a couple of months. Everything is being delayed, and everyone's going through this. But this journalist was like, "Oh, someone else is doing a story on one of the stories that something that you're doing, and they're going to publish it." But I was like, "How are you going to publish something when you haven't even spoken to what we've done or to my client, and you have no idea what it is?" So they're just going to publish something that they're
going to publish a rumor. Yeah. Do you know what's
mad?
That
really annoys me. That really annoys me.
No, I agree with you, mate. And I think for me, look, we're a YouTube channel. We're a fan-run channel. We're a fan opinion base, so we run stories. But the stories we run, 95% of the time, are stories based on what we've read in the newspapers. And the reason I started the channel was I'd read a story and I'd be like, "That's BS," and I knew that was BS because it might have been a footballer that I looked after, like. Or my department looked after, and we're like, well, he doesn't earn that. That didn't happen. This isn't nonsense. And it was mainly financial. So I started doing these shows where, the titles, no doubt, the titles of our shows are very much based on what the media headline is. But the idea was to get as many football fans as possible to watch us. And then we give them an opportunity to have their say. So you might end up with 4 or 5 football fans calling in to discuss a subject, but everyone gets to have their opinion. And I felt for me, it was a way of going, okay, this is what the media have said. This is what a fan has said. This is what a different journalist has said. And you can kind of come to a consensus around what may or may not be true. But I think what's really important for football fans is to keep that open mind. What we try to do on the Terrace, it's been great having yourself on. We had financial experts on in the past. We've had other connected journalists on in the past, because sometimes you just want to hear it from the horse's mouth, if that makes sense. And I think for
fans
me,
deserve that.
They do. And I think the problem is, and this is where YouTube, I think in the future, if you build the right relationships, can serve as a great outlet for even players. Is players I know are reluctant to speak to journalists because so many things get twisted. I think for football fans creating content, the big fear for the journalists is that the players and agents and people around, and maybe even the clubs at some point, build a bigger respect for YouTube content creators. Because all I want to do, if there's a big scandal story involving Joe Blogs, I just want to hear what actually happened. I don't really like. Again, when the big news came out about Hudson-Odoi in the summer that he'd been arrested, we did a stream on it. But literally, we said, look, don't start attacking the young lady that's made the accusation. Equally, leave him alone until we know the facts. Like, this is what's been said. But it was a case of everyone relax. I'm seeing all the newspapers. Oh, another footballer this, another footballer that. He's been arrested for this. He did that. He's allegedly. It's like, why are you even saying that? Just print. Like, yes, he's been arrested for an alleged crime, but there was nothing in the article that says he's innocent until proven guilty. Everybody leave him alone. It's all just put out there to be overtly sensationalized. And I think for me, we're not written press. So for us, it's a great opportunity to like everyone to express their opinions and talk about these things. And it must be something that your players and people that you talk to in the sport get frustrated about, with the amount of mistrust. I remember reading a Guardian headline about Jose, and it said, "My life in Manchester is a disaster." The worst part is I read the article. And what the article actually said is, he said he loves living in Manchester. He said he loves where he's staying, loves the people, blah, 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 blah. He says, the only thing in Manchester that's a disaster is when I leave the hotel, you and the paparazzi chase me everywhere. So he said something negative about the press, but they twisted it into my life in Manchester is a disaster. And for me, that's like, hang on a minute. How is that even legal? How is it even legal to write that headline? It's crazy.
And I think what happens there is there's a divide between football and fans, and someone in the middle is creating it. Someone's creating that big difference. And this is what I'm trying to say. Fans deserve more, because you want the fans to be connected with the club. They want to be connected with Mourinho as much as possible. They want it to be. And anytime someone is trying to divide it, what happens? Every time there's a division, there's a lot of conversation in the middle, and that's where they thrive on. They love it. They're like, oh, so, believe it or not, this is on TalkSport. I heard someone say, is Salah even in the? I mean, is Salah even the best player in the league at one point? Where I think he did something extraordinary, and then there was like saying, is he even in the top? Yeah, is he even in the top 20 strikers or something? Or like, they knew what the answer was, but they're trying to get the fans to kind of really like egg them on. And I think those sort of comments online, where I don't get too involved in this stuff, but I do see it, and I think I listen. Some of the information that comes out there is to really egg the fans, because they know the fans are passionate and their energy goes towards another topic rather than, for example, what the fans could be focusing on or what the fans could be looking at. But yeah, so that was my thing with
I completely hear that, mate. Listen, I really appreciate you coming on, having you and having a good chat with us. It's been really nice talking.
Pleasure. It's my first time, by the way. First time I've done a YouTube live stream.
A live stream, yeah. That's all good, mate. It's good, really good information, good stories, and everything else. Everyone who's tuned in, you know what to do. Make sure you've all smashed that like button. We're back tomorrow with more. A bit of a slow day for us today after a manic weekend. We're back tomorrow with more content for you as always. Until then, everybody, take care of yourselves. Goodbye.